Welcome to Marcor Studios, where here we will be interviewing different industry professionals and educating our homeowners as well as the industry as a whole. We hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to Marcor Studios. I am here today with Inga DiNardo with Elite Restoration. Thank you, Inga, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So Elite Restoration, I go way back with your boss. Did you hear the story about how I met Travis?
I have not.
So Travis, at the time of when I met him, must have been over 10 years ago. And Travis was working for a roofing company. And we met out east on a job. We just bumped into each other. I was running a little bit late, actually, and I'm usually a timely person. But I knew who I was going to because it was like a guy that I did like work with the non-for-profit. And he was just price checking me. And I knew that he was just making sure that like my numbers were in line. And I knew the company Travis worked for. And I was like, I didn't mean to seem cocky about it, but I was like, hey, you're not going to get this job. He's just price checking me and you're twice my price. I know what, like where you guys are price structured. I'm like, so he's up on the roof measuring. I'm on the ground. It was like, it's always uncomfortable when like two people are on the same site pitching the same, the same job. So Travis and I get to talking and he starts talking to me about remediation and all this stuff. And I'm like, listen, I'm a public adjuster. Why don't we not waste so much time here? Do your pitch, do your thing, but just, don't waste too much time with this one. There's a Panera up the block. Let's go get coffee. And this was before he owned Elite. And he was too scared to take the jump. And I was just like, you got to do this. Like, there's just so much opportunity. And I got to tell you, watching him grow this business, I beam with excitement because of it, because I love what he's turned this into. And he's just such a great person in general. Like, I don't have to tell you that.
Yeah.
But just watching him being able to succeed and so many, punches that were thrown at him, and no pun intended, he did like fight for charity after I did it.
Thanks to you.
That's my dude. But he took a lot of punches in the business too. And I don't have to tell you, remediation and mitigation is not an easy business to be in. But share with me how you got into this.
So it's a funny story because honestly, I don't even know how I'm here. I came from a financial background, 15 years in the city. And COVID happened and we moved to Long Island and I was looking for something closer to home. So I applied actually as an executive assistant because that was my background. So I worked with Travis hand in hand. But first, I didn't even know what restoration was, remediation. I was like, oh, we just restore stuff. I didn't realize the depth of this business and how interesting it is and also how difficult it is.
Oh, yeah.
And I somehow I was doing marketing in addition to the personal and executive assistant stuff, and the role just kind of worked where I did more marketing, and then they asked me to do full-time business development. So in the last 2 years, my role transitioned from being a little bit of EA, a little bit of accounting, to a full-time business development. So now I'm in the field most of the time, dealing with the insurance adjusters, brokers, plumbers, home inspectors, and anyone in the industry that will be able to give us some
opportunities.
So I'm doing a lot of networking. But it's interesting because I had no idea what restoration was, and it is a lot more than just a name. There's so many different pieces to it, and I'm still learning every single day because no one wants this to happen to you. Like when you have a disaster, you don't know who to call, you don't know what to do. So I think it's just really an interesting industry once you understand that there's a lot to learn and a lot to understand, and you need to know the right people.
What's crazy? It's like, so I know I'm a licensed public adjuster, so I work hand in hand with a lot of remediation companies. I work with a lot of, I'll take more smaller claims and let the public adjusters handle like the big stuff. And usually they'll bring me on the small stuff because nobody wants to deal with the small stuff. So as I usually do, I'll deal with the stuff nobody wants. But years ago, say probably about 7 years ago, I remember I was pregnant with my second daughter, and I went in my basement, and there was about 2 feet of water in my basement. And within an hour, Travis had everybody at my house. Luckily, at the time, my basement wasn't finished, but when you have an insurance policy, you have a contract basically with the insurance company. You pay premiums, and they have to honor that contract as their promise that they're going to pay out a claim if something were to happen under the covered perils. So mine ended up to be it was a water claim. Since then, we put a French drain in, and we put the sump pump in. But I mean, when I tell you, pregnant and almost 2 feet of water, and the team came in, and they pumped everything out. They had air movers, dryers, you name it. I mean, but even being in the business and knowing what to do, it was really scary. And even like 2 weeks ago, you're so leery to file a claim. You don't know, like, should I file a claim? Should I not? We had our pot filler kind of, it just slipped down, and it slipped at the perfect angle, and it hit the pot. Nobody knew that it turned the pot filler on and flooded our stove, flooded our brand new kitchen, flooded the wood floors. We cleaned it up because you have a duty as an insured to mitigate damage, right? That's why people call it, mitigation or remediation. You want to mitigate the damage, and you want to make sure it doesn't get worse. Otherwise, you have issues with the claims being paid out properly. So with that, again, being a professional in the business, knowing insurance, I was like, do I file a claim? Do I not file a claim? And I was leaning towards not filing the claim. And it was crazy because our stove was on, and the fire department came within, we had to call the fire department. There were sparks coming out of the stove, flames coming out of the stove. I sent everybody out of the house. And within minutes of the fire department leaving, a restoration company knocked on my door. Like, they got an alert, and they're running moisture meters, and they want me to sign right then and there. Like, can you explain to our listeners how to handle those situations? Because I was in the business and I got overwhelmed, and they were like, well, if we're going to bill the insurance company, it's going to be X. But if you're going to pay out of pocket, it's going to be less. And it was like, it just seemed like there was a game to it. Can you kind of give us the background of what your experience is with that?
Sure. I mean, it's a situation where even if you know people, which you're inexperienced, you don't know what to do because you're panicking, and you're like, who do I call, and what decision am I making? And then you call, and then even if you call your insurance company, they could kind of steer you in the wrong direction. I think that the most important thing is just to know your policy, know what your insurance policy holds, and know how to break it down, know what your deductible is, and answer these questions. Because is it worth it? Let's say if it's a fire, obviously it's going to be a large loss most times, But if it's something small, that if it's a water damage or some sort of leak, that's probably going to cost you $2,000 to $3,000 to clean it up, and the deductible is $5,000. It doesn't make sense to file a claim. So that's why I think the first step is to have a trusted professional, whether it's your broker or in our case, it's a mitigation company, that you give them a call and you even send them a video and explain to them, this is what's happening, what do I do? And then we'll be happy to advise you and explain to you the process, to walk you through, hold your hand, and explain to you what to do. And if you need to file a claim, we'll help you do that. And we'll say the right things, and we'll do the right things to make sure that you get maximization out of your claim. Most of the time, if you put in the claim yourself, you will probably get a check for the minimal amount and then accept it and think that's what you're entitled to. And you could attest to that.
From the public adjusting side, absolutely.
It's not where the damages are usually exceed everything that you get paid for. So that's where you have to we come in and we try to look at the damage, assess it, and pretty much hold your hand through the whole process and explain to you how to do this the right way and make sure that you don't get screwed.
Yeah. Now, would you say that that's a common pitfall from homeowners, that they try and handle the claim themselves, or they don't, they file a claim and they don't know their deductible was, maybe a lot of these policies now are switching to like percentage of the value of their property, and they don't realize that they have, a $10,000 deductible or a $5,000 deductible. Are we seeing that as like an issue from the remediation side?
It's so funny you say that, because I think half the people that call us, they don't even know what they're insured for, and they don't know who their broker is, and they don't know what the policy is. So it's interesting to see, like, now with, all the, I guess the premiums going up, everything's going up, and people are just sending the check. They don't even realize what they're paying for, why, how much they're paying.
They just know they have to check a box that they have to have it for the mortgage.
Exactly. The mortgage pays the premium. So at the end of the day, it's the people don't know what they're insured for. They don't know what. So I think it's important to, figure out what your dwelling is, and if you have like additional insurance on your all your personal items. Like if you can, it's important to take a video of everything in your home just to have that in case anything happens, you have proof of, hey, I had 45 designer bags. And I have, all this stuff that's important to me. Because if you don't have videos of it, a lot of people don't know that. If they don't even know what they're insured for, they don't know what they should be insured for. So I think that's what we need to, just educate people to know that you have to insure and double insure if you need to. Make sure that you're covered in case there is a disaster.
So now, what would be, so let's say, I mean, obviously every situation is different. If you have a fire loss, it's a little, a lot more involved versus if you have, let's say a water loss. Like what would be a homeowner's first step, and what are, so they don't make a mistake?
Well, obviously it's just preventative, for water losses, make sure that that you have your roof inspected and that your gutters are clean. And then if there's a storm, your windows are closed. You'd be surprised how many people decide to storm watch, and they're like, oh, let me leave the garage door open. There's just a little thing. So I think it's just protecting yourself and then making sure that everything is, in the winter, make sure the cabinets are open so your pipes don't burst. Make sure everything is pretty much fresh. To have a plumber come in and inspect every few years. And if you purchase the home, make sure you get a home inspector that, that's not just from one side, from the other side as well, because you don't know what's lurking behind those walls. Also, you could do an air quality test. Obviously, taking out, not to leave too many plugs plugged in. These are all preventatives. And now there's so many fires. And during a fire, it's the most hectic situation because you don't know. You call 911, and then they come there and they kind of, obviously you get out, let's say it's not severe, and you get out of the house and your house is bursting up in flames. You don't know what to do. You're basically you're lucky that you're alive. Who cares about everything?
100%. It's dirty paper. It's replaceable.
But then the steps after. So, I think it's important to get a trusted professional, and there's just, it's really hard to find someone you trust. And that's what I think makes us different, is just, that we genuinely care about the person, not necessarily just the claim.
So a lot of people get nervous about these remediation and restoration companies. Like I said, I even was told the other day, I didn't even call them. I mean, Travis would always be my first call. But, in the event that, they knocked on my door and hey, listen, we saw that you called the fire department. Just the fact that they said, hey, are you going to go through insurance or are you not? That's not something shady there that oh, well, you're billing the insurance company, so it's going to be more money. And I understand that there's a different process of the softwares that pay out certain numbers and they're paying out fair market value. But is it just me, or is there some shadiness going on in this industry?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can't get into it, but it's not a clean business. I mean, I probably get in trouble for saying this, but it's you gotta have very thick skin, and you gotta, for example, in terms of fires, you can't get near fire. It's your house is burning down and you're worrying about whether or not you're gonna have a warm pair of boots to put on yourself and your family, but then you have 10 restoration companies coming at you with pieces of paper hey, sign this, go with me. It's in that moment, you don't know who to trust. And I don't blame the homeowner for just being scared and want to hide, somewhere else and be don't talk to me right now. I don't know what to do.
Your house is burning down, all of your valuables are burning down, and you have between public adjusters and board up companies and remediation companies, a line of people to be able to get a business opportunity when your house is legitimately burning down. And while there's a need for that type of stuff, and again, they have to mitigate the damage and prevent, more damage potentially from happening, it's still a double-edged sword.
100%.
So what would you suggest is the best approach of what a homeowner should do if they were to have a loss? Is their first thing to file a claim? Is their first thing to take pictures? Is their first thing to call a mitigation or remediation company? What would you recommend?
I think it's very important, obviously, to call, the broker if you're comfortable and find out, the first thing to do is just obviously know what your policy is, if you're insured or not. So it depends on that. If you don't have insurance, obviously you need to figure out how to do it, self-pay and what would be the best way. But it depends on the loss. For example, if it's a fire, the most important thing is to get the board up company first. That's a step. And then you can figure out everything else. And the next step is to get a trusted remediation company that's going to be honest and loyal. And that the step to that is obviously read reviews, make sure that they're trustworthy, make sure you know people that have used them. It's better to use someone word of mouth opposed to just a name that your insurance company is going to recommend. Because sometimes the company the insurance recommends is not the best. And then you would have to call someone else to follow up and finish and do the job right. So I think it's always good to kind of word of mouth and just go with your trusted partner. whether it's your broker, or if you already have a mitigation company that you've used before, have them come there, record everything, have a video of everything, and ask them what to do, because they could walk you through the process and make sure that everything's done properly. And obviously, they're going to protect you. They're going to tell you what steps to take, because they've done that so many times.
Yeah.
Because when you're in that situation, you don't know what steps to take. So that's why it's important to speak to the professional. And I think someone like me or someone like Travis will be able to get a project manager on site, assess the situation, and then get a crew together in a short amount of time to just pretty much damage control. You know, that's what we're there for. We're there to make sure that you don't have to worry. Just let us handle everything else, and you know that you're going to come back to a beautiful home again. Yeah. And during that time, you don't know how to make those decisions. And I think people usually do this once in their life, right? Yeah. Usually it's a one and done. So I think we deal with this all the time, so we know what to do. But now people come to me for